Do you ever wonder what would happen if you took a story about a cyber ninja from the world of Metal Gear Solid and made it into a game with sweet, stylish hack-and-slash combat? The answer is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. This game, for a Metal Gear game, was pretty solid. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm here to talk about the boss battles, which ranged from frustratingly annoying to okay to really awesome. So without further ado, my top 8 Metal Gear Rising bosses.
Okay. Let's dance.
Don't be ashamed. It's only nature running its course.
Monsoon is the first boss fight in a really long time that has just made me want to chuck my controller at the TV screen. First of all, he's got this really stupid mount move where I swear I could break my analog stick trying to escape him and still not be successful. Then he's got a really repetitive beginning stage where he throws these smoke grenades and jumps at you. Once you get past that and start getting something going for yourself, he'll just jump around and throw these vehicles at you that you gotta slice up in blade mode. Once that's all said and done with, you gotta throw these electromagnetic grenades to disable his body, and you get a really small window of opportunity to attack his head. And then that cycle just kind of repeats itself until you've won or died. Monsoon's also not really that interesting character-wise, and his gimmick is stupid. His theme song isn't that great either. The most annoying thing about Monsoon, though, is the fact that in the very next mission, they send you through a boss gauntlet, and he's in it. Seriously, not even an hour after I've beaten this guy, I have to fight him again. Really annoying.
Okay. Let's dance.
If you would kill for your ideals, then surely you are ready to die for them.
I will be completely honest here, when I was originally devising the order for this list, I almost forgot that Mistral existed. That being said, I still think this fight is pretty good. The fight takes place on a power plant, which is a pretty cool setting. Her whole gimmick is that you gotta slice up her staff in blade mode before you can actually hurt her. After you hurt her for a little bit, she'll jump up onto a platform and throw flaming dwarf gecko bodies at you. The fight migrates all throughout the power plant, and the finish comes when she stabs a container full of chemicals, and then Raiden decides to slice it open, which freezes her, so you have the opportunity to slice her into itty-bitty pieces. Character-wise, Mistral isn't that much better than Monsoon, but I do think that her theme song is a lot better, and I overall enjoyed her fight a lot more.
Okay. Let's dance.
Like I said, kids are cool, Jack. And I'm very in touch with my inner child.
Alright, so something that the Sundowner boss fight has over the Mistral and Monsoon fights is that this fight actually has build-up. You got to see this guy before the pre-boss fight cutscene. Anyway, so the fight is pretty cool. You can go about fighting him a few different ways. You can either run around and attack him when his shield isn't up, or when he does put up his shield, you can go into blade mode, and then one slash will break his defense, and then you can take the opportunity to cut away pieces of his shield gradually. And the fight starts to kick into high gear when you finally break Sundowner's shield, and he pulls out his scissor sword, and becomes a lot more aggressive in his attack pattern. The finish to this fight is pretty sweet too. Sundowner falls off the building and you think you've won, but he caught onto a chopper and fires a rocket at Raiden. Raiden jumps off the building and catches a set of those raging raven wings. You're then put into an on-rail shooter segment of Raiden riding the raging raven wings up through the World Marshal building, and when he bursts through the roof of the World Marshal building, he throws the raging raven wings at Sundowner's chopper, and Sundowner is launched towards Raiden, and then you slice him into pieces, all before you touch the ground again. In terms of character, Sundowner has more personality than Mistral and Monsoon combined. His theme song, however, is the most uninteresting of the bunch. I even like Monsoon's theme song more than this one. But the fight was still pretty awesome, and the finish was fantastic.
Okay. Let's dance.
I am here to kill you.
This fight is a lot of fun. It's probably the most straightforward of the bunch, being just a fight with a robotic wolf with a few techno gadgets, such as a chainsaw for a tail, and some cool throwing knives. Pretty much all you have to do in this fight is parry his attacks and then deliver your own combos. After you damage him so much, he will jump up onto a ledge and summon some minions for you to Zandatsu. Every time this happens though, he gets increasingly more difficult. The finish of the fight comes when Raiden stabs him a few times and then cuts him into pieces in Blade mode. Blade Wolf's musical theme does a really good job at painting the picture of his character, pretty much being a slave to his owners and him yearning for freedom. After Raiden defeats Blade Wolf, he does in fact get this freedom because Raiden takes him back and repairs him. Blade Wolf then becomes a companion to Raiden throughout the rest of the game.
Okay. Let's dance.
Pop quiz. What is the best way to get players absolutely hyped to be playing your game? Throw a Metal Gear fight in the first 5 minutes, that should do the trick. Anyway, this fight comes in 2 stages. The first stage is kinda simple. All you gotta do is run around and deflect the machine gun bullets and dodge its laser cannon. Once you get up close to the Metal Gear, all you gotta do is start cutting away at its feet, and you'll blade mode its armor off. And then, the finish of the first phase comes when Raiden grabs the Metal Gear's arm and throws it, and then he runs and cuts the arm into pieces and slices it off, and it is absolutely awesome. The second phase of the fight occurs when the Metal Gear returns later in the level. Pretty much all you have to do here is dodge its lasers and missiles and slice its face up. You'll do some blade modes to its arm. And then the finish of this one is Raiden decides to put the warship to Contra to shame here and runs across these missiles. He completely slices off the Ray's arm. You think it's finished, but the Ray throws Raiden up and he lands on a clock tower that he runs down, dodging some more missiles. And then he stabs the Ray in the head and cuts it completely in half. There's no point talking about the character of Metal Gear Ray because, well, it doesn't really have a character because it's a robot. But I will talk about the battle theme because the battle theme is absolutely fantastic. Just listen to it for a second.
Rules of nature! When the sun comes up, with their arms on the line, alive, forever!
Okay. Let's dance.
Metal Gear Excelsis is absolutely huge. Now that I have that obvious piece of information out of the way, let's get to the boss fight. The first thing that happens is you have to start dodging these 2 gigantic sword arms on Metal Gear Excelsis, and when they're stuck in the ground you have to attack them. After you do so much of that, you get to blade mode the armor on Excelsis' legs. Once you get through with that, it will summon a couple of geckos, and you gotta get rid of those while he fires lasers at you. After that, you do more damage to it, and you blade mode the armor on its other leg. The finish of this fight is absolutely glorious. You rip off Excelsis' arm, and then you get to blade mode Excelsis with the gigantic arm, and it is absolutely awesome. The theme song for this fight is pretty good too. Not much else can be said about this song except for maybe...
Crap battle!
Okay. Let's dance.
Don't fuck with this, Senator!
What? Armstrong isn't number 1? I bet a lot of you probably are saying this.
You're batshit insane!
Well anyway, just hear me out. I'll get to why I chose number 1 when we get there. Armstrong, however, is a great final boss fight. He comes in multiple stages, although the first couple are just transitions for the cutscenes, some of which are great, by the way. For example...
nanomachine, son.
So like I said a minute ago, the first two stages of this fight are pretty much just wasting time until the next cutscene. In those cutscenes, Armstrong effectively beats Raiden down and breaks his sword. Eventually, it's Blade Wolf to the rescue and he gives Raiden a new sword, and the real fight begins. And oh boy, this fight is awesome. Armstrong uses moves such as really massive punches, a super kick, he punches the ground to make fire, and he even does an elbow drop or two, along with throwing pieces of Excelsis at you. After you damage him for so much, he will eventually regenerate. He has twice the amount of health as a regular boss, by the way. And if you don't use Blade Mode to attack him at just the right spot when he's regenerating, he will counter you for a very, very hefty piece of damage. The nail-biting finish of this fight comes when Raiden frees himself from one of Armstrong's chokeholds, and then he'll charge at you and you gotta beat his fist back in Blade Mode. After that, you'll stab him in the stomach, retrieve your sword, and go to town in Blade Mode on his nanomachine protected heart. After you've chipped away enough damage at that, you will drive your hand into his heart, and in the next cutscene, Raiden will rip his heart out. It is a pretty awesome finish. The theme song for this fight is also really fantastic, and it's my personal favorite on the soundtrack. It's called It Has to Be This Way. It has a slightly apologetic tone, actually, and Armstrong himself as a character has become a fan favorite since the game was released, and it's not really hard to see why. I mean, he's so over the top, it's hard not to like him. Although he doesn't have the depth that other Metal Gear villains have, I mean, this game doesn't really have the depth that other Metal Gear games did. So, for what it's worth, this is a great final boss.
Okay. Let's dance.
Okay. Let's dance.
So by process of elimination, you've probably figured out that number one is in fact Jetstream Sam. I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of rival battles, and Jetstream Sam is a great rival in this game. Early on in the game, you encounter Sam, and he absolutely destroys you, cutting off Raiden's arm and taking out one of his eyes. Later in the game, when you encounter him, the fight has a really big feeling of full circle satisfaction. The fight itself is another one-on-one duel in the Badlands of Colorado. Sam uses a plethora of sword techniques in order to combat you, and then about halfway through the fight you end up disarming him and he's still just as tough without his weapon. The fight comes to a conclusion when Raiden and Sam lock blades, and then Raiden delivers a swift stab through Sam's abdomen. He doesn't cut him into pieces, he just stabs him and Sam dies. Sam is quite honestly my favorite character. His cool demeanor and his awesome sword skills are just great to me. His theme song, called The Only Thing I Know for Real, is really cool too. It describes a warrior who doesn't really know why he's fighting anymore, but he's just fighting because it's the only thing he's good at. And I think that gives us quite a bit of cool insight on Sam's character. So, with an awesome amount of build-up, a really good fight, and a great feeling of full circle satisfaction, Jetstream Sam takes my #1 spot as the best Metal Gear Rising boss fight.